the idea of a Socratic circle, you all remember Socrates from your studies. Socrates was the wrestler guy. So what he liked to do was he would go hang out with the rich kids because everybody else had a job except for the rich kids. And so he would hang out with the rich kids and they would talk. And he wanted them to learn how to think. And so he would invite top officials to come and share with them, to impart wisdom, and they would seek truth and knowledge. And so somebody would walk across the marketplace and Socrates would be like, oh, hey, why don't you come over here and share your wisdom? And of course the person would be proud to go sit among the elite, their children, and teach them. I mean, who wouldn't be honored? And say, okay, thank you for coming. So tell us, what is justice? Because that's a lot more difficult than just explaining what your job is. Okay? And so and he ended up annoying a lot of, well, just too many people, and then they put him in jail, and that's a whole nother process. But we learned from Socrates ways to communicate, ways to think about things, how to question our world, and how to seek truth above all. And he taught us a way to do that we call the Socratic Method, and it was just like what Socrates did in the marketplace. What is justice? He would ask questions. And you know what? It's really easy to pick apart people by asking questions, you know? Now, developing a question can be difficult, but it's a separate skill to build the question. And so finally, people would get flustered and they turn around to Socrates and say, well, fine, you answer it. And he's like, oh, well, I know nothing. Socratic ignorance. And it would infuriate people because this is hard. It's a hard process. And so that's what we're going to do today, is we are going to try and think like philosophers. We're going to dig into a question and we're going to ask questions. And we're going to do that in a different way really than we have in the past. We're going to have two teams, okay? Now, understand, this is not a debate. This is not about winning. There is nothing to win here. We are here to explore a concept, okay? So we're going to have two teams, and the first team is going to be the team that is discussing the concept. And today, it's going to be what is courage. The second team, they are going to be sitting around, well, they're supposed to sit around. We're going to stay put because we have limited space here. But the second team is going to watch the technique of the first team. Now, these are the things that we're looking for. We want people to seek clarification. A lot of times when people are talking, you make assumptions about what they mean. It can be assumptions about what a word means, or what they meant when they put their words together. Remember when we were talking about our essays, our argumentative essays, okay? And the very first section was about definitions, was to clear up some of that stuff. But when we're talking, that's difficult, okay? And so we want to have lots of seeking clarification, to truly understand what a person said before you develop a response, okay? The next thing is we want to stick to the point. We don't want bunny trails heading off into the weeds all the time. Bunny trails are fun, and you all are used to doing that because when I teach holistically, that's how we get to other subjects. So for this activity, you're going to have to rein yourselves in, okay, and stick to the point. Now, there may be different things like you sought clarification, and so then that becomes part of the discussion. We just want to make sure that we don't get too far off in left field. Make sense? Okay. You need to listen. Part of listening is being quiet while somebody is talking. okay? So that means we don't want extra comments. We don't want funny remarks. We don't want people to try and take away the limelight. So we want to make sure that we listen to people as they are speaking. Then we seek clarification, and then we can offer our own point of view. We want to take turns, okay? Now this is another thing where you're going to have to pay attention to what's going on. Pause, wait for somebody to finish speaking before you speak up. Do not raise your hands. That's very different, okay? So the reason that teachers have children raise their hands in class is because they assume that they don't know how to follow a discussion. So we are changing and shifting into a different way of relating where you take turns, you have to pay attention to other people and see when it's your turn to talk instead of relying on raising hands, okay? You're going to talk to each other for this conversation. I am here to facilitate. I will be asking further Socratic questions for the topics that come up. But my job is not to teach you anything. Your job is to explore, and my job is to keep things going. Okay?
May I ask if this second circle, the watching group, are they allowed to ask those questions seeking clarification, or is that strictly for the first group?
That's strictly for the first group. Now what's going to happen is that once the first discussion is finished, either because you all reach the end of what you all can come up with, or simply for the sake of time, we will stop, and the second group will critique the first technique based on this and logic that they see in there. We've studied fallacies. You may bring those into the discussion, okay? And so we can talk about the steps of logic, and we can talk about the technique. And then once we're finished with that, we're going to completely swap. And the second group will be the Socratic group, and then the first group will watch technique, okay? So the goal here is to explore philosophical concepts and to become familiar with the Socratic process. Are there any questions? I would like Ivy, Daniel, and Matthew to be the first team. And I want Laura and Rowan and Sage to be the second team. Okay, so Laura, Rowan, and Sage are going to be our watchers, our technique people first, and Ivy and Matthew and Daniel are going to tackle the question first. Okay?
Hey, let's pick on some people.
Do y'all have any questions?
No.
Okay. All right, so the question is, what is courage? Take a minute to think, and you can speak whenever you like, remembering to take turns.
What I think courage is standing up for yourself, and like trying to face fears is one of the ways to have courage, to believe that you can achieve your goals.
Then what separates courage from bravery in that standpoint?
Courage is thinking you can do something, and then bravery is actually the action of doing the thing.
So courage is a mindset and bravery is more of an action?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you have a good point there of differentiating the action and the mindset, and I would say something similar of courage and courageousness is a willingness and a motivation to seek goals, It's because if bravery is the standing for those goals, courage is I would almost say adding value to those goals of to have goals you must be courageous enough to add value to that goal, to give it purpose, therefore making bravery the action of standing up for the values of that goal.
What do you think, Daniel?
I agree.
So what makes up courage? What is the stuff of it?
Well, courage, for clarification, do you mean what would courage look like, or what is required to be courageous?
Let's go with what is required to be courageous.
Putting yourself in the mindset, saying stuff to yourself like, I know I can do this, and I hope to do it one day.
So encouragement,
Yeah.
almost, which, if you think of it logically, it's literally in the name, encouraging. It encourages it there. So yes, that, I would say yes, because it's, like you said, it's wanting to do something one day and being positive and motivating towards that goal. And so yes, it is encouraging, which means to give courage to something, which if you think about it, it's I would say it's just a positive mindset for forward motion. You first have to decide what your goal is, which I think that's a part of discovery, not necessarily courage. But it's hopeful, positive, forward thinking. And then bravery is the action of standing up in trials that might face that goal from happening.
Yeah. What I think is the difference between courage and bravery is courage, you're saying, I can do this one day, but bravery is facing your fears and saying, I can do this now.
Also, you have to have a goal to be courageous. And also you have to accept the fact that there will be hardships along the way, but you're willing to take those to reach the end goal.
I do agree with that.
So it is, courage is, what you're saying, courage is the openness to, and it's accepting the challenges that will come in seeking a goal or chasing a goal and an outcome. It's first you have to have found your goal, then you must have courage to understand that there will more than likely be trials trying to find that goal, and then bravery is standing for that goal in the moment.
And courage may take time, and bravery may take time. So there may be bumps along the way, so I wouldn't try to like just solve it right then and there.
So the courage isn't absolute, is what you're saying?
Yeah, like give it some time for you to like find when you want to do the goal and not just try to do it right away and do it all at one time. It may take some time, and there will be.
It may
bumps
take
along the way.
the thought process takes time more than just an instant decision. It's consistent over a period of time of continuously choosing to chase that goal.
Yeah, you have to see every side of the problem, which can take a while to comprehend.
Or not even seeing every side of the problem, but understanding the sides that you do see and acknowledging for them for what they are, and then choosing to continue to seek that goal.
Okay.
It's yeah.
Let's stop here. Okay. Very good, you guys. So let's switch over to team 2. Okay. What did you notice that they did well?
Thanks.
I was just about to say that.
So they continue to get further clarification
Okay.
of points.
All right. What did you see, Rowan, that they did well?
They listened to what other group members were saying and kind of stemmed off of that and adding more things to the discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I also saw some really good turn taking, and listening to each other. That was very good. You all were very respectful. I didn't hear any name calling or any shouting. You didn't throw things. There was no body slamming.
That was
So
close.
yes, I mean it was touch and go there for a while, but okay. All right. Yes.
They may make a point that it's important to maybe consider adding to the list, or is the list set?
No, the list isn't set.
Because, okay, I would say that what helps to listen and take turns and to also seek clarification is reiteration of an idea.
So tell people what reiteration is.
It would be restating a previously said fact or statement, but in some cases it's even adding your own twist to it, and that can also lead to new perspectives later on. So it's listening to what they say, interpreting it your own way, and then putting that out there. So it still means the same thing, but it can lead to more flow in the discussion. So
Okay. All right. So did we see any areas where improvement was needed? No, not really.
Clarification.
Some more clarification.
'Cause
All right. So let's swap roles.
They also really like turning things into debates.
Right,
I
and that's
love
what this
turning
isn't.
things
This
into
is an exploration.
because this isn't playing devil's advocate, is it?
No, it's not. It's simply for exploration. It's highly ritualized, and you can see the limitations of that. Even if we were just sitting and having a discussion, then you would have more time to defend your points, to do those things. The problem is, though, is that when one person really wants a point to get across and all of the nuance and everything that goes with it, it tends to turn into a monologue and not a discussion. And so that's one of the benefits of this highly ritualized process, is that it does allow everybody to get time to interact and all.
Not everybody gets time to interact because you have a circle that can't interact.
Right. But there are imperfections to it. But the benefit is to bring out different points. So I guess to go off of that, I suppose ideally you would even swap the composition of the teams if you had more time, because that would change the dynamics.
Because if this was a complete discussion, I would still be able to have a conversation with Rowan, not even necessarily between us, but her ideas would be added to the group, and we would all be able to continue forward as a group and redefine some points that might not have made sense before.
So seeing the there are obvious flaws with a Socratic circle that you have brought up. Okay, it's also probably why philosophers tended to just sit in cafes and drink coffee and talk so that they don't have to worry about it. When would using a Socratic circle be a very wise thing to do?
Politics.
Why? Why?
Because it adds equal voice to things, and it's not so much hitting each other over the head with specific viewpoints. It's a holistic open-mindedness of the goal is to seek understanding
Right.
rather than to sway opinion. And so as a group, that means that a political party or opposing political parties could speak openly about an issue and look for understanding and forward movement rather than battling different perspectives and not being able to shift.
Yeah, it allows every voice to have a turn.
Yes.
So the people who are speaking now are Rowan, Sage, and Laura. And our observers are Daniel and Matthew and Ivy. All right? What is courage?
So I liked what you said about the difference between courage and recklessness. Could you elaborate on that?
So we saw that courage, you have to have a goal, and you have to face your fears and do it anyways, and you have to recognize the hardships, and with all the things that they mentioned, that also falls under recklessness. So there has to be something that differentiates it and makes recklessness a negative thing and courage a positive thing. There has to be something that makes them different. So we just have to find that thing that makes them different, and then we can understand what courage is and also what recklessness is, and see how they're different. Because there has to be something different, because we know that courage is a good thing, recklessness isn't a good thing. So there has to be something that's different between them.
I feel like recklessness is more done in the moment, while courage is more thought out. Like recklessness is more impulsive.
So colors are good things to help us feel different feelings. Blue is a very common color, red is a more passionate color. So what color would you give recklessness, and then what color would you give courage? Because we can use colors to kind of see out in our minds what it kind of means.
But with that, color can also, like red can be a very passionate color, but it can also be a very aggressive color.
Yeah.
There are different connotations to that too.
It's very subjective. I'm still trying to find that thing that differentiates courage and recklessness.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and assign a color?
I'd give courage almost like a lightish teal sort of color. Like a mix of a blue and a green.
So turquoise?
Sure.
We're going blue and green here.
Yeah.
Okay. Recklessness.
A burgundy color.
We got red.
Alright.
That works.
So, since you've assigned colors, and we're looking for the differences between the two concepts, what concepts do we associate with those colors that perhaps could serve as ideas towards these concepts? Give me just a few for courage and for recklessness. Or for bluish green and red, rather. Concept that she sort of felt that colors create certain emotions with us and can be associated with certain concepts. And so she sort of saw courage as blue and greenish, more of a teal color, and recklessness as a burgundy or brick red. And so I am looking a little bit deeper into colors alone that what they feel, the burgundy red, what is associated with that, blue green, what is associated with that, and maybe that will prompt further understanding into the concepts that you are dealing with, courage and recklessness. Okay?
So courage.
No, not courage, we're just looking at the colors. I want 2 things for each color.
Understanding for the blue green.
Okay? One more.
Foresight.
Okay, what about red? Concepts associated with red.
Impulsiveness.
What did you say before? You had already brought up something before.
Aggression.
Aggression was one. What else? There was one more.
Passion.
Yes. Okay. Now, maybe those concepts can be prompts to further understanding and differentiating the difference between courage and recklessness. Maybe instead of first finding out what's different, what is the same between courage and recklessness? Is it just these things?
They both have to do with making choices.
That's right. Wrong team.
Yeah, that's why I stopped for a second.
Sorry about
You want me
that.
to keep going, so I kept
I wish I could add to this discussion so
Mm.
much.
You're doing so well. Not.
Can we just let them add to the discussion?
Okay, we'll do
Add
this
to the
then. We'll do this then. Let's go ahead and critique the process, and then we'll
Okay.
open everything up.
Awesome.
The colors were a rabbit hole.
The colors were a rabbit hole.
I did not see I can see like visually how it's important to separate it, but I would say that that's just adding so many extra layers to it that we don't need to do it, because what we're looking for right now is we're seeking clarification, listening, and sticking to the point. I would say that going into color theory of this color means this and this color means that, I think that's adding so many extra layers to it. I would say that the whole premise of it is on loose turns, because you're trying to find what's different rather than focusing on what makes them the same. What differentiates courage from recklessness? Are they not one and the same? But one is more in the moment, like what you had, and the other one is more planned. What makes someone who is courageous could also be reckless.
Okay, we're also sticking to process here.
Yes,
Let's not
I know. And that's the thing is, the whole process was looking for something that should have been acknowledged like it was impulsive, and it should have just continued on from there. It shouldn't have been so dug into, in my opinion, that we just lost track of where we were going. Because the question is, what is courage? It's not about defining recklessness.
Okay.
That's kind of what I said.
That's a
the
good
colors are. It's kind of what I said with the colors are like could be taken in so many different ways.
That's true. There's a lot of variability there.
It doesn't
Okay.
it doesn't subtract value from this whole discussion. I'm just saying that
sure.
it loses track of what the discussion was originally about.
This is very restricted. You're right. Okay. All right. What else?
Group working together. I mean, I know that not everybody in a group is always going to work together, but just more fluid back and forth and working together to find an idea rather than like necessarily opposing ideas. Like I said, with reiterating and restating things, seeing their perspective and adding new light to it rather than
So we
shooting
want-
down each other.
We want more collaboration.
Yes, yeah, because that's the thing is
Yeah.
we're a team. We're all trying to go for the same goal, rather than opposing things, and that's the issue that we see in a lot of groups. Is there's a lot of opposition, even in politics, you see people they have their idea and they've held on to that for so long that they don't want to look at it from a different perspective or even accept that other perspective, even if they are listening. And so what it should be is shifting ideas, taking into consideration other people's perspectives. Like on my team, Ivy and I had a lot of back and forths of she didn't have things that I would necessarily first originally think of as courage. And so just back and forth, I was able to shift my idea, and with Daniel's help in that, we could all come together and come to what I felt was a good blanket statement of what it could be. Where, from what I noticed, you two had very back and forth of just going from one idea and then completely just shutting it off, where I can see that is looking for more clarification, but in some senses it was very, what I felt was closed-minded, almost.
All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to open it up.
Oh, yes.
And I'm going to flip it just a little bit and ask first, what situations are necessary in order to require courage? What elements must be there? Because does it take courage to brush your teeth? Does it take courage to speak out? What are the differences? There's an environment in which courage takes place that can help us understand what courage is.
Does it take courage to speak out, or does that take bravery?
I'm not going to go into the bravery or recklessness right now. We're just going to stick to what is courage for right now. We may go into recklessness and that either, but I want us to start afresh, okay? Releasing what we've already discussed so that we can take it in a completely new direction.
So completely starting over.
Right.
All right.
And wherever we end up, we end up. Yes?
I think with your first statement of, do you need courage to brush your teeth?
Okay.
And sometimes it might take courage, because if someone told you something that made you afraid to do that one thing, it might take courage to it might take some time to muster up enough courage to do that thing.
Okay, so is there then an element of fear?
Yeah, I was
And
about
that
to
was
ask that. Is
mentioned
there then?
before. So what creates fear? Is there some concept of threat?
Threat, unknown. I mean, there are several things that cause fear.
Okay.
Or can-
Going back to
or
your-
All right,
can
so
help
let's
cause
come back
fear.
to this. So we have a threat or an unknown. We have fear resulting from that.
So, what it seems that we're saying is, for there to be courage, there has to be a choice where you could do it and work through it, or you could not do it.
Okay, so we have a choice, and choices form so much in philosophy. Okay? All right, so we have some kind of threat that exists that creates some level of fear. There is some level of choice at play.
On the opposite side of that choice, the other driving force that adds to it is, what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve from this? Because oftentimes it's the competing driving forces of fear and the driving force of that goal that push together. And that's what that courage is choosing it's really the battle. It's the choice. Courage is the choice between fear or the goal. Bravery is acting on the goal and overcoming the fear. But courage is really digging deep into what the goal is, almost of the thought process of choosing the goal. Bravery is the action of choosing that goal and actually doing it. Courage is choosing the goal in your mind. It's a thought process of overcoming fear and to develop your goal, to forward your goal.
So if courage is the process in your mind, and I'm just gonna write, that's kind of clunky, but we'll go with it right now. I know what you mean. If it's a cognitive process, if it's a process in your mind, if it is a choice, what does that process actually look like?
Kind of like what we had with our discussion between courage and recklessness. It's listing out pros and cons and definitions and forward factors and withholding factors of really just looking at both sides and determining what, or how would say it?
So at what point does it become courage instead of decision making?
So
It becomes when you.
Let's go
okay,
for
go
it
ahead,
for a little bit.
for as the way I see it, there's the goal, and between you and the goal there's an obstacle, and you're trying to decide whether enduring through that obstacle is worth getting to your goal. So courage is deciding to endure that obstacle, knowing you'll make it through it, even though it's going to be hard, even though it's going to be painful to get to the goal.
Well, you know that you make it through. If you know that you're going to make it through okay, is it still courage?
No, because then it's just a cakewalk. You just go do it.
So
Okay.
courage must maintain that sense of unknown throughout the whole
It's-
process.
Courage is recognizing the fear and choosing your goal anyways.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in order to have courage, you must have fear.
Yes.
In order to have courage, you must have fear as part of that definition of courage. You must have fear, you must have a goal, and you must have a choice.
I would say that courage is that choice. Courage is choosing that goal.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the opposite of choosing that fear, that's just fear. You choose the fear over your goal, and you almost cowardice. You don't want to fail. You let
Yeah.
the fear take hold. Courage is choosing the goal in the face of adversity. It's seeing the challenges, recognizing the fear, recognizing the challenge, but still choosing to stick with your goal. Bravery is the doing of the action. Courage is similar to that of choosing your goal anyways, even if it will be opposed in the way of trial.
Okay, what do you think, Sage?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said of like having to, courage is the choice, and there has to be fear to like make it courage, because it's
So there has to be fear. I kind of want to go also with what Daniel was saying about cowardice. What then is cowardice?
It's choosing fear over the overall goal.
Okay, so does somebody have to choose fear or the goal, or did they choose the goal and succumbed to fear?
So with what I was saying with the goal and the obstacle, courage would be choosing to go through the obstacle to get to the goal. Cowardice would be avoiding the whole situation and choosing to do nothing.
I would say to be fearful and cowardice, you would still have to the goal would still have value, but the fear is that obstacle. The fear becomes an obstacle itself, and cowardice is not being able to overcome the fear with that value. The goal is still valuable, and that's what that cowardice is. It's a locking. It's a lock of the value of the goal meeting the fear that it can't overcome, and that's what that is. It's almost crippling, and that's why cowardice is so challenging. Is because you still have value in your goal, but it can't overcome the fear that's in the way.
So cowardice has made the choice of the goal, but it succumbs to fear and does not enact bravery because it did not take action. So cowardice then would be a choice that leads to inaction and avoidance of bravery. There was no bravery there was no action.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas courage is making the choice towards the goal, enacting bravery, or at least having being open to the potential of bravery. Because remember that do you have to succeed at reaching your goal in order to have courage?
No.
Okay, so it's reaching the goal is not part of
Because
this.
because you have already chosen goal. If you have already chosen courage if you have reached your goal. Even if you have not reached your goal. Either okay.
You can have
It's
courage.
a
not
crossroads. It's a crossroads. You can either make it to your goal, or you can not make it to your goal. But either way, you've made that choice. You have gone down either path. That's where courage comes in. You can be courageous and not meet your goal, but you can also be courageous and meet your goal.
So
Alright.
courage isn't getting a goal, it's picking a path.
So we have courage is picking a path. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we then have some type of true obstacle,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have fear as its own obstacle, and I feel like the fear precedes the actual obstacle. So then the person makes a choice.
The fear is the mental obstacle.
So we have a choice here, and so if somebody hits the fear after their choice, then they end up with cowardice. But if they come up to here, they automatically have courage at this point, whether they succumb to that or not. Is that simply defeat?
Defeat is subjective because it depends on what your goal is, and it depends on how.
Well, but I'm
how
showing
you
here that you did not achieve your goal. Okay, you were defeated by the obstacle, but courage, I guess, then takes place here because it has the element of the fear, it has the element of the choice,
Mm-hmm.
and so I
but
guess
it's not quite getting to the goal yet.
right. Well, it can. It can. You can continue on up this way. I guess this would be victory then, which leads to your goal. But courage would take place here, after the threat of fear, after the choice.
Mm-hmm.
And if you succumb to the fear, then it's cowardice. And if you succumb to the obstacle itself, that is defeat. That is not cowardice.
What if the obstacle itself is fear? What if the obstacle? Okay, so I'll put it this way: if you're talking about from your example earlier of just speaking up as your choice to either show courage and speak up or not show up, you're going to be heard either way. Is in the fear most of the time is just. Like there isn't really a necessarily an obstacle there. It's mainly the fear of will I be rejected? Will I be heard?
But they're usually, like Ivy pointed out at the beginning, there is an act that must happen in order for this to. There is when that action is taken to confront the obstacle. That's that bravery that she brought in very early into the conversation. Okay. And so whether somebody speaks up or not, the speaking must happen in order for the obstacle to be traversed. Okay? So yes, the main struggle may be with the fear. This may be relatively small compared to the fear. But there is some kind of action.
So the obstacle
that must occur.
itself would be the speaking?
Yes.
Okay.
Whereas the fear itself is the fear.
Okay.
Also, a point that I would like to make is that courage has many steps. The first one is thinking of the problem and the goal that you want to achieve. The second one is in the process of coming to that goal. And then the third one is facing that goal and trying to get to it as quick as possible.
So yeah,
So we have to be aware of this process, that aware of a situation. We have to then make a choice, and then we have to do the actual.
Yeah, that awareness I would say is almost. I mean, I would say that I overlook it just because it feels so basic. Because that's when you give your goal value. That's when you assess what your fears are.
Okay, so there is awareness, there is an assessment, and this is where you compare your values with the situation. Okay? Are y'all good with that?
Yes.
Anything else to add?
Nope.
All right, so to sum it all up of what is courage, we've become aware of a greater process of which courage is a part of. And that's our awareness of a situation that we then assess and think about and compare our values with the situation, and we then have a choice. If we do not have a choice, it is not possible to have courage. It is not possible to have all of this dynamics without choice. But once that choice is made to confront fear and the obstacle, once we, if we succumb to the fear, then that is cowardice. If we continue on towards the obstacle, choosing to face it, then we have courage. If we cannot pass the obstacle, then that is defeat. And the action of confronting the obstacle is bravery. And if we have victory over the obstacle, then we reach our goal. Very good.
Some of the terms could be defined better, but yes.
True.
Yeah.
I know, but we did this in, 45 minutes? So, all right, no, that's enough for today. Thank you all so much.